Welcome, bow betters. Welcome, people. Welcome, anyone that is part of this community. Do I have a community? I don't know. Am I building a community? I'm not certain. It is Roberto. I am Roberto, and you have come to my channel, Bow Better. We primarily do mixed martial arts gambling as well as gambling analysis, but we do cigar reviews. We do product reviews, and we do cafecito con Robertito, or in the mornings I sometimes discuss the news or any topic you might want to talk to, and then I also do reading the tea leaves, where this evening, as the title says, we're going to look into the Bryan Khohberger case again. We're following up on what latest developments are there. It's a case that interests myself as well as a lot of other people for many different reasons, but welcome. Appreciate y'all having people in here. Before I continue on, let's see if we do get some people in here, and then let me test out if we're going. We are indeed live, right? Like, we gotta make sure we're live. I could see that. Yeah, we are. We're live. There we go. I appreciate anybody that might come in. All right, let me pop out the chat here so that I can get a hold or see if people actually do come in. Having some technical issues. It's never really without technical issues here, right? So it's never completely gone. Let me put myself now in the realm of being visible, but welcome, people. Welcome, bout betters. Thank you for coming on in when nobody's in the stream this far. So with this Bryan Khohberger case, what is most interesting now, and I think it's important for all of us as citizens, as people, whether we're interested in the rule of law or if you're interested in rule of law, regardless of where we're at, whether it's one of our family members, it's one of the immigrants or migrants that are not getting their rights sort of, and people argue and say they're not citizens. They don't have a right to due process, and that's not necessarily the case. Can you imagine when your family, for example, it was immigrating here and you landed from at Plymouth, not at Plymouth Rock, but at Ellis Island, and you had no rights? Ellis Island was a pretty brutal place. It almost was like a little prison. So actually, but I'm getting away from myself. But when you do have jurisprudence, or you have that rule of law and you have that process, you're going to come before a judge, right? And judges have a lot of power. One of the powers, I think, that in this case that I actually don't think it's very, I don't want to say fair, but one of the things that they're able to do is actually determine what arguments are not only legitimate, but permissible in the court, right? Some arguments you're not allowed to make. You can't make an argument. For example, let's just say that I was caught with somebody that I was driving Uber, for example, and I picked up a murderer. Person just done the murder, and I got picked up, and then I got charged with being an accomplice. Like, the police didn't believe me that I was an accomplice. They charged me. The state's attorney, not the public defender, but who is it? The public defender, not the I'm sorry, the state's attorney, or the attorney of the city, wherever you're arrested, doesn't believe that you were not involved, and you end up at court and you say, "Hey, I'm an Uber driver. I wasn't involved in this." And then the judge says, "You know what? That's irrelevant." Or they say that's can be confusing to the jury if you bring that up. You can't use that as an argument, right? Like, that the actual fact or the actual possibility that you were somewhere else. So going to one of the big things that was here that within this case is that right now, or at least the most recent development was that in the Kohlberger case was that his defense was arguing that there was the possibility that there were somebody else and there's evidence of another perpetrator. And the judge is saying, no, you can't have this evidence. You cannot admit this evidence. I don't know why, right? But there are certain reasons why a judge can exclude arguments in a case. And usually it's, as it says here, to primarily ensure the trial remains fair, efficient, and focused on relevant, admissible evidence and the law, right? And you would think that if you were accused of a murder at a certain location, that occurred at a certain location, right? This is a very important case, that you'd be able to argue saying, hey, we have evidence that there were other people that haven't been questioned, or that there is physical evidence of these other people that were at that location. There's DNA evidence and there's other evidence. You know, we have something that is scientifically and can be determined that somebody else was at the murder location. And the judge is saying that that's not permissible, right? Of course, the defense is wanting this to allow in there. So let's go to the actual. 1 second here. Yeah, let me do this here. Right, this was in front of the judge. Let me see if I could get this in here. So give me a moment, people. I'm gonna make myself a little smaller here. I'm having issues. Where's that transparent? I don't want that transparency. I want that gone. Boom. And then I want Idaho here. Where you at, Idaho? Right. Let me get Idaho. Right. So boom. Whoa. I had it large because. Whoa. Oh. Maybe shorten it. Make it smaller. Whoa. Come on, Idaho. Yeah, I tried to. Whoa, wait, come on. Nope, come on. Come on, Idaho. Come on. Yeah, this is getting a little, come on, it's challenging here. Come on. Whoa, that's interesting. No, we don't want that. Where's Idaho? Why are you doing this? Man, I'm so pissed off at myself. Let me get calm. Thankfully, there is nobody here. So I could work this out. Right? I can work this out here. This can be worked out. Let's move it up ahead of the Mac. Boom, boom, boom. Why do you do that? Why is that? I don't know why it's doing that. That is so funny. All right, let's do that. I didn't know that was even possible. So we're learning some Shiite here. All right, there we go. There we go. Let's get this a little smaller here. This is from the Idaho Statesman, right? So we're gonna take a look at the judge here, and put that down there. Right? Yeah. Let's listen to what the judge has to say. So this is here on. Oh. Come on. There's an ad loading. Let me reload this stupid thing. There's an ad loading there. I don't want to watch the ad. I'm going to pause that. So here's what the judge has to say about not admitting the fact. This is Judge Stephen Hippler requests the defense to submit actual evidence and admissibility justification for their alternate perpetrator claims by May 23rd, as current submissions appear objectionable. Okay, so let's hear them out.
the defense's proffer. So I did, as I indicated this morning, receive the defense's proffer regarding alternate perpetrators. And that will be sealed per request, I'm assuming per stipulation. And I want some additional information. What I'd like is by the 23rd, if possible, for the defense to.
All right, so that's not very long. Right, he's not giving them very much time to formulate or to gather what evidence they do have. And here's something where someone can prohibit you, right? Like they could sort of throw a wrench into you not getting this information. For example, if it were in the hands, because the handlers now of a lot of the physical data, of the physical evidence, is the FBI, right? The FBI may not have a time frame to or an impetus or a requirement to get you a certain piece of data or data that's necessary, right? Or let me see, what am I doing here? They might not have to get you this stuff, right? Let me boom. Oh, I don't know which window that is. Boom. There we go. I want to cover that up. So let's hear this out further out. Let's hear it out.
Do two things. One, provide me with whatever actual evidence you have that supports those allegations, rather than just allegations. And two, provide for me how it is you believe that what you are offering is admissible.
Right, and so what it says here is a defense team for the man accused in the stabbing deaths of 4 University of Idaho students plan to argue the possibility of alternate perpetrators at his upcoming murder trial. The judge confirmed that during the last scheduled pretrial, I'm sorry, I read that improperly. It sounded like some of our Congress people. Judge Stephen Hippler of Idaho's 4th Judicial District said that during the hearing that the defense for Bryan Khohberger in a motion asked to seal its allegations regarding another culprit or culprits, which he granted, right? But Hippler warned the defense that it needed to provide 2 things by the end of next week. Evidence rather than just allegations, and an argument to support the admissibility of its case. The judge said that the defense information was potentially fairly objectionable in terms of admissibility, right? And I don't know what he bases that on, right? Let's see if there's anything in there. No, just ads. So that's from the Idaho statesman there, right? So that's from the Idaho statement. Let's get rid of that window, right? I don't want to bear that, but basically here from ChatGPT, and let me see if I can get the ChatGPT window here for you, so that we can. Let me redo this property here. Instead of UFC SAT, we're going to, where's my ChatGPT? There we go. Okay, boom. And so, boom. Why is it that the Idaho window is still open? Boom. Hide that. And then there's the ChatGPT. So, all right. So the judge, one of the reasons that he can excuse, right, or not admit this argument is for irrelevance, right? Like how can you determine that something's irrelevant? That's really, really, I find that to be quite a challenge, right? Let's see here. Let's see if I can get this a little better. Welcome, Bout Betters. Welcome, people here. Boom. Where's Joey? Oh, my goodness. Boom. Yeah, boom. Yeah, and so I'll read this out. Like, I'll read the first one is irrelevance, right? That's one of the reasons a judge can not admit arguments of evidence must be directly related to the legal issues in the case. If an argument doesn't help or prove or disprove a material fact, the judge can exclude it for being irrelevant. So essentially, I think what the judge is asking is direct evidence. He's asking for material evidence, fingerprints, DNA, article of clothing, something that is a physical, right, and scientifically determinable fact, right, that is a physical piece of evidence that is, whether it's DNA, whether it's a piece of clothing, fingerprints, right? We're looking for direct forensic evidence. And my argument here is that it's going to be tough for the defense, possibly within, what are we talking about, 5 days by the end of the week, to get this information, right? So imagine to yourself, if you're in court, and this is the why courts and having money, and why having money is so important, right? Because even if you do, the gatekeepers and the holders of this evidence are like at this point are the FBI, and of course the laboratories that they're using. I think there has to be some agreement, and there has to be some regulation that whoever is holding this information has to cooperate with the defense team in order to provide it when requested, and they probably have to meet the judge's deadline, but I'm not certain of that, right? So what happens to us, normal folk, or something that, I mean, it's just very challenging, I guess, is my point here. Like, I'm not trying to, I'm not for Khohberger or not Khohberger. I think, and I mentioned this from the first time that we saw, and I mentioned this case, is that it's teaching us about the judicial process. I think this is teaching us about the judicial process a lot better. It's a better example from a learning aspect than, say, the Diddy case, the P. Diddy case. That just has more grandiose. This case has some entertainment value as well, but I think that the Khohberger case here can teach us a lot of the judicial process, of the defense process, as well as the prosecutorial process, right? So we gain a better sort of window into what legal affairs are when it comes to determining a murder. So irrelevance is going to be the other reason is prudential and probative value. Even if something is relevant, a judge might exclude it if it's potentially unfairly prejudiced the jury outweighs its probative value, its usefulness in proving something important. Man, here is where it's dicey, right? It's not like they're just setting up a straw man saying, "Oh, it could be anybody," right? They're saying there is evidence there. There's evidence that other people were on site, right? And have they done due diligence to question everybody's DNA that was found on site? And this was a party house in Idaho, right? It is a big powder keg. It is a problem, sort of Pandora's box for the prosecution, because there's probably was, and the house is gone. Another stupid decision by a lot of people, right? I understand that the town had a strong interest in getting the house torn down, but the FBI should, as well as the town, that had, of course, an interest, no, but still nobody in the chat, had an interest in this case and it being tried fairly, and all the evidence being found, did a disservice to, hey, wait, where was my did a disservice by tearing down the house, burning down the house, like really just a big mistake, right? So we're here in this prudential and probative value, even if it's relevant. And it is relevant that, not, when they do present it. So it's still possible that the judgment might exclude it, not because it prejudices the jury, but it's probative value, its usefulness in proving something important, right? Just because there's other DNA evidence present doesn't mean, right, that those people where that DNA is a killer. But all that the defense is positing is saying is that, hey, there's a possibility. Did you look into these other things? There is a possibility that there was another suspect or a potential other killer because there's other DNA there, right? How much of Khohberger's DNA is on site and how much DNA is there of person X, Y, or Z, right? So this is very, very important for the defense here in determining, this here. So violation of rules of evidence. The court follows strict rules of evidence like the federal rules of evidence in the U.S. if an argument relies on evidence that violates these rules, such as hearsay, speculation, or improperly obtained evidence, it can be excluded. And here's a big thing for the defense. There was some evidence that was obtained unscrupulously. It was gathered from Khohberger's father's garbage can, right? When the garbage can wasn't in public property, even though as we know, most garbage cans are given to, not private property, but it was on private property, and they seized this evidence, right? So was this evidence some of the main DNA that they used to comparison to Khohberger and DNA that was found on the site was found in this way. So the judge allowed that evidence, but he's not allowing this evidence here. So it's the danger here is that the judge and the community, the media, the families, they all think they got their man. And herein lies the problem, right? Like, what if, right? If there is somebody else at large, right? This is a strange case because Khohberger had no criminal history. The amount of DNA that is on site, there are no eyewitnesses, right? The amount of DNA, or there was an eyewitness or witness there, because one of the girls that lived in the house survived, right? She wasn't attacked, which is interesting as well too, right? So this is very, very bizarre of a case, but I'm just looking at it from, and I'm not a legal expert. I have no legal background whatsoever, but in learning the trial process in a murder case, I think that this is just so interesting because there's so many things that have gone wrong. There's so much desire, there's just a lot of prejudice, I think, by the judges, by the prosecution, by the community, and we're not sort of opening it or looking at this too objectively. So, all right, the fourth thing is improper legal arguments. If an attorney makes an argument that mistakes the law or misstates the law, argues issues already decided like a matter of the settled law, or introduces a legally barred defense, the judge can exclude it. So is like, hey, there's somebody else possibility. Is that a legally barred defense? No, right? But that's a matter of subjection by the judge. This is the power of the judge. The judge can set the rules, basically, of evidence, of argument, right? Of discovery, right? Of everything that can be used to free you, to prove that you innocent. A judge can sometimes exclude, right? A judge can have they control the structure of the case, that essentially if the judge wanted to steer and guide this in one direction, which it seems like he can do, right? So there isn't an improper leading argument right there, but avoiding jury confusion. And this is definitely in their case. Allowing this, like, hey, there's other DNA, can confuse the jury, because right away it creates some doubt, even though it's not legitimate evidence, right? Judges can exclude arguments that are legally complex or misleading in a way that might confuse the jury, even if they're marginally relevant. So this is giving a lot of leeway to the judge to not allow the defense to argue this line of there being multiple assailants or a different assailant in this case, right? It is unfortunate, right? Where is that? One second here. Yeah, the other thing that they're looking at in this Khohberger case is the violation of a gag order. That's another piece of news. That's the most recent piece of news. Where was that one at? His family can attend. Possible. Right, so that we heard that. Before I go back to, let me read this here for you, on the gag order, right? The judge overseeing Bryan Khohberger's upcoming quadruple murder trial says he wants to identify anyone who may have violated a gag order by leaking information from the investigation to news organizations or anyone else not directly involved with the case. Fourth District Judge Stephen Hippler ordered prosecutors and defense attorneys on Wednesday to give him a list of everyone, including staffers, law enforcement officers, and defense consultants who might have had access to the previous unreported information about Khohberger's internet search history and other details that were featured in NBC's Dateline episode that aired May 9th. I haven't seen that one. I'd heard that he had an infatuation with the other doctor, good-looking murderer. I can't. He's very famous, but he was infatuated with them. The judge said that he would be open to appointing a special prosecutor to track down the leak, which likely violated the gag order that has been in place since 2023. Khohberger, 30, a former grad. Okay, that's not really there, here or there. So, prosecutors have said that they intend to seek the death penalty if Khohberger's convicted. Hippler wrote in court documents that it appeared likely that somebody associated with law enforcement or the prosecution team violated the court's gag order. So it was it was not on the defense team. The leak will potentially make it harder to seat an impartial jury, drawing out an already long and complicated court case and costing taxpayers money, Hippler wrote. Importantly, such violations potentially frustrate the ability to ensure both sides receive a fair trial, he wrote. Accordingly, the court finds it is imperative to attempt to see that the source of such a leak is identified and held to account. Hippler also ordered everyone who has worked directly or indirectly on the case to keep all records of any communications they may have had with journalists or other people outside the law enforcement about Khohberger or the investigation into the killings. Hippler appeared to have discussed the matter with prosecutors and defense attorneys during a closed portion of Wednesday's pretrial hearing, but he also referenced the Dateline episode and the possible gag order violation during open portions of the hearing, at one point remarking that after the day of the episode aired, he decided to impanel additional alternate jurors for the trial. Later, he told attorneys he expected them to file a formal request to have the matter investigated, right? So they're going to be looking into this. And it's important, right? Because he's not getting a fair trial if this happens, right? Right? If the, what is that? Here, boom, boom. That's in March. Why doesn't it even have the newer ones? That was from AP, by the way. All right, so going back here. Avoiding jury confusion, and that's going to be a problem now, right? Because the jury can be tainted, so that's another thing that could help the defense here. But protecting constitutional rights. Arguments that infringe on a party's constitutional rights, like arguments based on the defendant's decision not to testify, can be excluded to preserve fair trial rights. He doesn't have to worry about that. And then pre-trial rulings, motions in limine, or limine. Okay, I should know this better. Often before trial, judges rule on motions to preemptively exclude certain arguments or evidence so that they're not even brought up in front of the jury. And the judge tried to do that with this, right? In short, judges exclude arguments to keep the trial fair, focused, and in line with legal standards. This helps prevent trials from turning into free-for-alls of speculation, bias, and irrelevant issues. And I think that's the danger here of allowing there being the possibility of multiple suspects without any physical evidence. And again, nobody's in the chat here. Okay. So that's not good. That is not good. Let's see. Ooh, the Margaret River Pro's on. Let me see if what else I have here possibly to discuss. But yeah, it's judges in a murder case. Here we go. Bryan Khohberger. This is from Court TV. Bryan Khohberger's defense is just an alternate suspect. So here, 1 second. Let's get that done. USC stats. Boom. We're going to close that out. And then, is it here? Boom. Is it, where are we at? No, that's that one. Is it this one? No. But we can change it. So I'm going to get you here. All right, so let's hear from this Court TV. This is from Court TV here.
And we're not going to divulge.
Whoa. Shit. I cannot show that, so let me boom that and play it. Because I got a copyright thing and there's... Yeah. Skip. All right, cool.
It was made from the roommate's call, or phone, excuse me. And we're not going to divulge who made that call.
They came here together. They eventually get into the same apartment together.
Is this your place?
Yeah.
Perfect. You want here?
I assume noise.
Noise, yeah.
Yeah.
And in the end, that they died together.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Why did they do that? Come on.
Welcome back. This morning, as we give a voice to victims, we're keeping an eye on an Idaho courtroom where defendant Bryan Khohberger, the man accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students, made a court appearance on Thursday. And his defense team is doubling down on their alternate suspect theory. But the judge wants some evidence to back it up.
Additional information there. What I like is by
And we just heard this, people.
the 23rd, if possible, for the defense to do 2 things. One, provide me with whatever actual evidence you have that supports those allegations, rather than just allegations. And 2, provide for me how it is you believe that what you are offering is admissible. Because it seemed to me much of what you had put in there was fairly potentially fairly objectionable in terms of admissibility.
Okay, so the judge wants to see some proof, and then, of course, the state's going to have an opportunity to review what the defense puts forward and then file their response. So the judge set a couple of court dates coming up for that, and so many motions have been under seal, so who knows if
Yeah,
we'll
see-
get to see this ahead of trial, but of course we're watching the docket every day to see what else is filed. Let's talk about this idea in general, though, the idea that someone else did these homicides.
All right, so there we go. We're going to get into she's going to get into this. We're going to get into this here. You know, they're going to approach it. Let me put myself up here. Boom. I'm going to put, what did I have these guys at? Whoa. Yeah, there we go. That window. Right. That one. Get rid of that one. All right. Let's see what she has to say about the alternative.
Multiple people did these homicides, maybe not just one person. Let's talk about that defense theory. Let's bring back in our legal experts, Dave Ehrenberg and William Ehlenfeld. Dave, let me begin with you, please. Your thoughts on what the defense is seeking to do here.
Well, when you got nothing, you got to start creating something. I mean,
Oh, see here right away. There's prejudice. Like that's the problem here. I think the judge has the same prejudice. Right? How can you say they have nothing when there is? What if now they show up with some fingerprints, or there's some other DNA from somebody else that was in the home? Right? Again, we mentioned this earlier that the home, they destroyed the home. A lot of this physical evidence is no longer there. And then what if they were only looking just for one type of evidence? So of course that's the type of evidence that's collected. How is it that in a home you're only going to have evidence of the kids that live there and then the potential murder suspect? That makes absolutely no sense. No one, for example, I live here at home with my brother and my mom, and we have family members come over. We have friends that come over. When you take a walk and you go to the store, you're you're bringing in other possible DNA from other people, things that are on your shoes, things that are on your clothes. Just say that we had no other contact and nobody in our home. There's still the possibility that other DNA could get in our home. What they're trying to say is that, okay, all that DNA is irrelevant, right? But which I don't agree with. Joey, what's going on, dude? Check it out. We're doing it.
they waited months before they could figure out an alibi for Bryan Khohberger. And it was that he was driving alone in the middle of the night looking at stars in his hardtop Hyundai. None of this makes any sense.
It's all prejudice.
Do the closing argument because they're just throwing anything at the wall. That makes about as much sense as an alternate suspect, right? How do they get Bryan Khohberger's DNA on the knife sheath? How do you explain that? Some other guy set him up, planted it there, and then drove off in a Hyundai Elantra, which just happens to be Khohberger's same car. And of course, Khohberger can't explain where he was.
Yeah, see, all this is like Joey already know. We all know this, right? I don't know why these are lawyers, of course, and it's just for the media. But you could see already the prejudice in this is the media. These are this is a lawyer who does media, and you could already see his prejudice coming out. Coming out without really strong details. He's just gaining this and gleaning this from the media, and he's already developed a prejudice. Right? So Khohberger is going to have a mistrial potentially easily.
There's no alibi for him. It doesn't make any sense. This guy did it. He's going down for it. I respect the defense lawyers for trying what they can, but the judge, you can see, is it
right? Yeah. So it's obvious that he's like, this guy did it. Like, and he has no basis for saying that. Like, he has no basis for saying that. It's not really. I would not want this guy as my lawyer.
skeptical as I am?
Yes, Dave, tell us how you really feel. Love everything you just said there, especially the part about your adorable dog doing the arguments. I think we would all be here for that. Let me piggyback off of something you shared with, when it's a defense team trying to deal with the bad facts. They've got a lot of bad facts, these attorneys who are...
Yeah, look at all the prejudice in this presentation here from Court TV. Right? Talk about bias. Right? There is no objectivity from this reporting here. And I'm not trying to... This is the same kind of prejudice, that a lot of people encounter. Look at the not just the migrants, like, oh, he was a gang member. He had tattoos. Oh, he had a prior domestic violence charge, where in this instance would be relevant, right? If Khohberger had a prior domestic violence charge, forget it. They'd be bleeding into that, saying that he was he hated women and blah, 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 blah. But these judges, there are these guys in the media, as much lack of evidence there is to tie to them, they're like, he did it, right? It's like, again, you're tried by popularity, by the court of opinion, and these lawyers should know better. They're not doing a good part for themselves of getting new clients.
William, tell me, we've seen this team launching a rigorous defense for him. It seems like they're leaving no stone unturned.
That's good. You want people to have a rigorous defense.
I think it's got to be really hard with what they're doing. Could this have anything to do with the state seeking the death penalty?
Of course.
Could there be any repercussions for his...
God, this woman is so stupid. Oh my God, I'm getting dumber for watching this. Of course, like, she's faulting, and same with the lawyers. They're faulting his defense lawyers for doing everything possible to help their client. That's what you want out of a lawyer. Dude, if you have, of course, no one's going to hear me, but if either of these two numbnuts are your lawyer, you're fucked. You are fucked. Do not hire these guys. They're going to sell you out to the media. They would have been the types that leak stuff to the media, right? Like the judge was talking about leaks. It was here. It was in, they know it was in the prosecution or law enforcement. Oh. I gotta blot that out. There we go. Let me boom. Luckily I was on it.
Good point. And by the way, my Bernie Doodle fetus might also want to have a crack at this trial in addition to Dave's people. But
Yes.
named after Pittsburgh Steelers Jerome Bettis.
Oh, that's
but,
so awesome.
When there's a death penalty case, these things, if there were to be a conviction and he were ordered to be sentenced to death, then that's going to be on appeal for quite some time. And
there's going to be a lot on appeal here.
New attorneys will be appointed, and it would be the job of those new.
Right, there's going to be a lot. Like everyone, since that Dateline, it's obvious that every lawyer wants put in their 2 cents into this. Right, everyone wants to give their 2 cents to this case because now I'm telling you, this case is going to be more popular. Once it's in full swing, it's going to be bigger than the Diddy case. It's gonna encompass that case completely, overshadow it, and there is more interest in this case here in from a lot of perspectives, right? Because it involves actually the deaths of kids. It's a tragedy, right? We want to know who's done it, but we also want a fair trial. We want a person to have the legal defenses and the ability to get a fair trial.
To try to pick apart what his current attorneys did wrong. And so they want to make sure they cover all their bases and that they explore every potential theory. And I know at a pretrial hearing in this case early on, Julie, one of Mr. Khohberger's defense attorneys said that they might have an expert who's going to say this crime could not have been committed by just one person, that you needed to have two perpetrators and two weapons.
No, that's not the case.
The judge is saying,
like,
now,
look.
The judge is saying, look, give this to me in advance of trial.
Look, this is just, these guys, this is just out of hand. Like, I get it. These lawyers are on court TV. There has been no mention of you could see that Bryan Khohberger's defense suggests an alternate suspect, not multiple suspects, right? Hasn't even been brought up yet, right? And it just shows you how something can snowball. Like in court, having the Khohberger smart and not talking very much, having a good defense team. But you can see these are lawyers, right, that are probably prosecutorial lawyers, right, not defenders. And you see how they already pigeonholed Khohberger and what their perspective is, right? Like they already have them in prison. They have them behind bars. The judge can do the same thing, right? And he's discussing that. The judge is going to say, hey, I need X, Y, and Z. And when the judge knows that X, Y, and Z aren't available.
I don't want there to be games played. A quote from the judge is, I don't like surprises. And so the judge is going to allow the defense to submit this under seal. The judge is going to review it and see if it is really admissible evidence or if it's objectionable. And even in that instance, if the defense has tried to get it in and the judge doesn't allow it, that would create an appeal issue for them, and they would be covering themselves. If in fact he's convicted and sentenced to death, they will have.
All right, and I don't think that that's the play here by the defense. I think the defense doesn't want to get to the appeal part, right? They're not. Yes, that helps. Ad hoc or secondary, right? Like down the road, yes, it helps. They're trying to get him acquitted in the first run, right? They do not want a guilty verdict, because how often is it that on appeal, a case like this is a murder case overturned? They'd have to be some certain, like, it isn't just going to be procedural, right, that overturns it. They're going to have a crazy, substantial, and significant piece of evidence that would overturn the case. Even probably in a mistrial, that had to be some serious fault on behalf of the prosecution, and the judge to allow the case to be overturned.
At least be able to say that they attempted to offer this alternate offender theory.
William, your insight's so helpful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, not helpful.
Tell you and Dave need to take a look.
To the extent that the model was characterized as a dollhouse, I think that was an inappropriate characterization. It is an inappropriate characterization. If I'm responsible for it, I assume responsibility, but that's simply not an appropriate way for it to be described, given what occurred there and the victims.
I think a better term is simply a model.
I've been following you, Russell, since I read.
Oh, God damn it. Right, so someone called it a dollhouse because, of course, there were like kids that lived there, beautiful women, right? Take the ad. Let me play this ad, and then we'll get back to it.
Yeah, the judge is right. Model, not a dollhouse. Let's talk about those victims. Let's put our focus on them and what this is going to be like for all of them. Something, as you both know, it just broke my heart when I heard about those two housemates
Who survived.
who were surviving roommates of the 4 beautiful students who were killed. And
Yeah, and we haven't heard very much from them. It's really, really shocking. And I think one of them, there is the possibility that one of them did see the murderer, that they did interact with the suspect or with the murderer, and that they're just in so much shock that the experience has sort of escaped their memory to some extent.
the judge said they're going to have a seat, and yes, they're going to be witnesses, but he thinks it's going to be highly unlikely they're ever going to show up in court and be around everybody because of the way that they were treated after this. I know you both are such tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly how they were treated, but considering, I don't think they were necessarily treated as suspects, but I bet there could have been blame and an aggressive amount of energy put by the prosecutorial people in the police department in that area of Idaho to put pressure on them. Like, how can you not, like insensitivity, saying, how can you not remember this? How can you not have seen this? How could you have been sleeping through this? Right? Like, really just, putting blame on the survivors, which is just a horrible thing to do. But I think it's quite possible that the authorities did that to the kids.
Advocates for victims and have done so much for the people that you've represented, respectively, in Florida and in West Virginia. And so let's turn our conversation to that. Dave, to you first, please. Your thoughts on this?
Well, the one victim who survived and saw the bushy eyebrow killer has been portrayed as...
See, she saw the killer. So there, she did see them, and she said he had bushy eyebrows. And this is a big deal, too, right? Like, that she couldn't pull Khohberger out of a lineup, right? But that Khohberger has these bushy eyebrows, right? I have bushy eyebrows. So many people have bushy eyebrows, right? It's so it isn't prejudicial because, or a prejudice because she did see them, right? And it's that she remembered that. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrifying. And I always wanted to make a joke, but I shouldn't make a joke. But the shock of seeing, I've been in that situation where somebody like is in my home that's not supposed to be there. And I can't remember. And even though there were some certain things, I can barely remember the guy's face because I'm so consumed with what I was doing. Right. And what my experience that I didn't even, because I was turned into a position of power, I don't remember that person's face. Right. Then I, of course, told them to turn around, but I don't remember the face. Right. The face has escaped me. You could see, I could remember the silhouette of the body, the clothing, down to like the color of the hair. But the actual, if I saw that person that was in my home now, right, in a lineup, I probably wouldn't be able to pull them out of a lineup.
Part of the conspiracy to kill her own roommates, and it's outrageous. And I've seen this online where you can have a mountain of
No, okay, this court TV, this I'm sorry I didn't review this and vet this before I started doing this live right now. This is really, really shallow. This is and probably they're going to throw a strike at me just because I'm using this, but Jesus, how bad, how prejudicial, how uninformative, how unprofessional do these lawyers and espousing conspiracy theories, allowing it. They're not vetting themselves right, or putting that the interviewer is not saying, hey, we don't know anything about that. We shouldn't talk about that. That's just something that's online, which he's saying is online, but that he would mention it. Like this grandstanding by these people is really bad. I almost don't want to play the rest of it, but let's play the rest of it. But don't hire these guys.
This case against Bryan Khohberger, and still you have his defenders, and I guess they'll believe anything. I have one rule when it comes to people like that online when they comment on my videos. They say, you can say what you want. My one rule is when he's found guilty, I want you to come back and admit that you were wrong. But I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, like this lawyer could say that, and we would. I mean, this guy has just got. This lawyer is not a good lawyer. This guy is not very, very good lawyer. This person he's speaking right now, he's not very good. I would not want him as an attorney. Right? Like arguing with people online. Come on, get out of here. That's for me to do.
Again at that point.
Right. You're right, Dave. The online bullies, they pick and choose when they want to attack and who they want to attack. And no consequences, no penalties of perjury for them, no consequences out in a cyber world because of the way that people have treated them.
It made me really sad to hear that. I mean, the trauma that they've been through, they should have the opportunity to, and he's giving them that opportunity to go in the courtroom and to see this process through to the end. That can be therapeutic.
Yeah, I don't think so. I disagree with these guys. There's enough of these talking about these people. It's these guys are this court TV thing was pathetic. They do not, they grab basically what I'm doing, and then they're like making judgments. I have nothing vested in this, and I'm not making that kind of judgment, right? I'm not trying to go there, right? Like it's insane that these guys would do that, right? It's this court TV, man. This thing sucked. Right, and I'm going to watch the Dateline. I regret not seeing the Dateline, but I bet the Dateline thing was even worse. I bet it's even worse, but it goes to show you, like, how easy it is to be tried in the court of opinion nowadays, especially with the age of the internet and social media, and you go from being a suspect to guilty so fast, right? Like, so fast. Like it could snowball you. You could be like the some of the migrants would go. I'm going back to the migrants. Yes, why not? Why not tie it in? Guy helps out like autistic people. He's gay. He's a hairdresser, and he has tattoos on him like ribbons, and he has other tattoos, and he's deported as a gangbanger, right? Or as a terrorist, right? Yes, I guess he's here illegally, or was here legally, depending on. Now they're all removing their status. So now if they were here even as refugees, they've been removed of their status. So they're given a certain amount of time to leave the country, and then they're deemed illegal. And so they could all be sent to a prison in a country that they have nothing to do there. Right? So let me read some of the comments here on the court TV channel. I like the judge did not postpone the trial for additional information. They either have the evidence or they don't, and they're stalling. I agree with that. I think they should give him a little bit more time. After 2.5 years, that animal has been sitting in jail now just weeks before his trial, and he's saying he knows who the real killer is. Really, he doesn't say that. Khohberger hasn't done that. If I was truly innocent, I won't just be sitting there in silence. That's not true. You should be doing exactly what Khohberger is doing. Don't say shit. There is no alternative suspect. The defense team needs to start a book club. The team is so creative with murder stories. I wouldn't go there. The longer Ann stalls this case, the more guilty he starts to look. It was not cameras in the courtroom that keeps him from a fair trial, nor social media. It's the delays that are being created to where info is starting to leak. Delaying is preventing a fair trial. That actually helps her to him, or in the future, in his defense. How on earth did his DNA get on the knife sheath if other perpetrators are involved? It's okay. What is replies to that? What you don't understand about touch DNA, you know that a machine at a store that you punch your PIN into, or a phone number, or the enter key to confirm your payment on the card you touched and then slipped into your chip, that hundreds of others have done the same thing too. That's how one machine at one store. I'm just saying he's not innocent or guilty, but you asked a question, right? So anybody's alleged DNA, boom, 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 boom. All right, regardless of those bias, stargazing by yourself is not an alibi. If there's an alternate suspect, there has to be an alternate universe that's in. Well, that didn't stick to the wall very well. Justice is for the victims and their families. This is a horrific crime. I'd agree with that. I'm so sad for the survivors. Their lives have been ruined. It's horrific. The people are being mean to them. They have been through enough. Yeah, and that the prosecution has probably been mean with them. I was comfortably seated on the fence until the Dateline special came out. Sorry, not sorry. Burger Boy is toast. He did it. Sadly, this case has much in common with OJ. Everybody knows Khohberger did it. The trial is just a formality. However, I don't think Khohberger is going to get the same verdict as OJ did. All right, trying to buy time again. They tried to file another person, but couldn't repeatedly give a person when asked by the judge. Then they went and filed it again for another 3 times, never being able to say anything on the matter. When the judge got mad and accused them of filing bullshit instead of working through their evidence against psycho eyes, they went on to file 50X to ditch the death penalty, which never worked either. Bryan is guilty. Yeah, I mean, I just hope that justice is served, right? I think his legal team is doing everything they need to do the best and provide the best defense for their client. And I do think that there have been a lot, just like the OJ case, there were a lot of mistakes by the prosecution, by the authorities there, by the police. The FBI has made problems. The prosecution has had problems, and the judge is now entering into having problems, just like in the OJ case with Judge Ito. There was a ton of problems with the process, and a good judge attacks a case by the process, and a good lawyer, a defense lawyer. And I think that that's what's happening here. The defense attorney is attacking the process, not necessarily the evidence. They're not attacking the court of public opinion. They're attacking the process of how all the physical evidence was gathered, not necessarily the legitimacy of that evidence, but the process of evidence being gathered. So here we are, people. It's I'm going to have to check out the Dateline. I didn't realize that this had gotten in a Dateline, so I'm behind the ball here, doing other stuff, but I appreciate anybody that's made it this far. You are about better. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of this. Are you going to be continuing to watch this case? Why are you interested in this case? What do you think of the defense and the job the defense is doing? And what do you guys think of the prosecution? What do you guys think of the judge in this case? Let me know right here in the comments section. I hate pointing, using my fingers to talk. I hate people that do this, using their hands to talk. Do. How come that this doesn't work? How come I'm not communicating something if I'm moving my hands like this to you? That was more my face was talking, not necessarily my hands. But people like using their hands to talk. Let me use my hands to talk. Provides emphasis in what I'm saying. Makes me seem more articulate. Really pet peeve of mine. People that try to hand talk. Maybe if you're voguing, you're a little bit better. So, see, that's how fun we have here at About Better. I'm not really a media person. I mean, in terms of a journalist or even a media person, but maybe I'm gonna stick to your lane, Roberto. Stick to your MMA that you're really bad at. Stick to smoking your cigars that you don't have to know shit about. And then stick to your lane. But again, if you've made it this far, you're about better. Very interesting case. I'm going to go watch the Dateline episode now. But we see that already that the jury could be tainted. And definitely there's even these lawyers that have been created a big, strong prejudice against this guy. So a mistrial is it's very probable. So if you've made this far, you're about better. Thank you so much. And comment, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We're going to keep growing, keep doing this thing regardless. So I appreciate anybody that might have heard this stuff.